Okay, so when Austin Meador was released from prison in July 2018, he came to my home at 1301 Houston Street, apartment 3 in Conroe, Texas 77301, and he got me pregnant. There was an 8-week time frame from July 10th, 2018 to September 18th, 2018, where he was abusing me in my home. And he was also abusing my 22-month-old son, Melbourne Halo Meador, at 1301 Houston Street, apartment 3, 77301. I had missed my period in July, around July, August. And through that time frame, I started to bleed. He was forcing me to have sex with him, and I started to bleed. I thought that I had a miscarriage because of the blood, but I did feel like there was still some movement in my crotch area, not my crotch area, but kind of the area above my crotch where the reproductive organs are. I kind of felt that there was a possibility that I was still pregnant, and I told Austin, even after I was bleeding, that I believed that I was still pregnant. Now, he was still abusing me. I had called the police several times, and the police department was working with Cynthia O'Vera to try to illegally give Austin John Meador my apartment, my home, and my car. So they were allowing him to beat me up in my home and abuse our son when he was released from prison. I had called the police several times, and Cynthia was calling the police department and trying to get the police department to arrest me. And I was not even defending myself because I was afraid that if I did, that he would kill me and my son in my home. And when I was pregnant, well, I am still pregnant, but while I was pregnant at this time, before the bleeding started, he was hitting me, he was abusing me, and I was afraid to defend myself because I felt like if I try to fight back, he's going to kill this baby. So I had contacted people who I knew, and I told them, and they told me to call the police, and I kept calling the police, and I told the police that I wanted to press charges. Austin John Meador is a white Caucasian male, and Cynthia O'Vera is Caucasian. And the police department, the officers that were showing up to these calls were Caucasian. And they pretty much saw that he was being abusive. There were holes in my wall that he was punching in the walls. He had destroyed the entire property. His knuckles were bloody. There were times where I was on the phone with the 911 operator, and they were doing everything to try to keep him from going back to prison and to try to give him my identity, my apartment, my child, my home. So no one in the community was helping me. They were actually abusing me along with him. Like, they were following me and harassing me in the neighborhood, and the other blacks in the neighborhood, they were being paid off to harass me in the neighborhood for the Conroe police and for Cynthia O'Vera, and the Hispanics and the Indians and the other whites. So I'm sitting here in the house with this mixed race child with all these people being paid off, knowing that he's abusing me in the home, and they're all trying to see the white man, the young white man, get everything fresh out of prison because he's white. And so, mind you, my family knew that he was abusing me. So on September 18th, he was attacking me viciously in my home with my child, with our son, Melbourne Halo Meador. He was viciously attacking us, and I had a 380. And I took my 380 out of my closet as he was attacking me in my home. He was keeping me from calling 911, attacking me. He was barricading me in the home, and he was also attacking our son. So I took the 380 and ran. It was in my purse and I ran. I was able to fend my way out of the home. And I ran down the street and he was trying to throw me off of the second floor where I stayed on the apartment building, because I stayed on the second floor. And he was trying to throw us down the steps. And I begged him not to, and I was able to run with my son in the street screaming for help. Now there was a black couple down the street by the women's shelter by my home, and they were watching. Mind you, they had been following us, harassing me and my son in the community for him when I was trying to get away from this family. Now, this was my home. This was my apartment. And there was a black man down the road who was watching with his little girls, and he was watching as Austin Meador was abusing me in the street. And so I was running down the street with him trying to throw me down with my son in my arms. And I recall a white woman saying that she would call 911. And this woman was in the car with a white male, and she was like, I don't want to get involved, after I flagged her down. And she was saying that she would call 911. So he ran in my home back to my apartment to take off of his hat and to try to change his shirt so that the police would not be able to identify him in that clothing from the 911 call from the white Caucasian female who I flagged down. And she had pulled up in front of my apartment building to so-called call 911, but her and the white male didn't want to get out and help this woman and child being attacked in the street. Now, mind you, I told you, a lot of these people were harassing us in the neighborhood for this young white male who is a convict. So now I went and walked into the Baytown Seafood restaurant because I was tired from running, and he had run off, and he was on his way back running towards me again with my son. So I walked into the Baytown Seafood. I walked past a whole bunch of old white people who were sitting in the front because he will attack them as well, and I didn't want the old white people to be involved. So I went to the back of the restaurant, and there was a man who worked there. He looked like he was like an Indian or Middle Eastern man. He was back there, and there was a young woman who looked like it may have been his daughter who was sitting there eating. And I asked him, I had my son in my arms. I said, sir, can you please call 911? My child's father is attacking me outside. And he was like, oh yeah. So he stood up and started calling 911. So while he was on the phone with 911, the white Caucasian male, my child's father, Austin John Meador, came into the restaurant looking for me. Now, he went all around the front where the old white people were sitting, and then he went to the restrooms looking around, and I was hiding behind this male who looked like he was Indian or from the Middle East. I was hiding behind him, and he was on the phone with 911. Now, at the time, my baby, Austin John Meador, he walked out of the restaurant, and then I'm thinking, okay, cool, like we're safe. And then so he walks back into the restaurant, and he spots me hiding behind the man with my son in my arms, and he starts charging towards me. And I put my son down in the restaurant because I could not put my son down in the middle of the street, and I was trying to get us out of the home while he was attacking us in the home. So I put my son down in the restaurant when he came towards me to attack me, and he started viciously attacking me in the restaurant. And the little girl who was right there, the young girl who was right there eating the food, she looked like she was from the Middle East or Indian as well. She got up and ran from the back of the restaurant when Austin John Meador came and started attacking me in the back of the restaurant. And my son was right there, and the man grabbed Austin John Meador from behind, and Austin John Meador was still attacking me while the man grabbed him from behind, trying to get him to stop attacking me. And he's all knocking me down in the booths, and he's knocking me all into stuff, and I was able to get him off of me with the help of the man from the restaurant, and the man from the restaurant was trying to restrain him, and he could not, and he went for the baby, and he started attacking the baby. And so this is what resulted in Austin John Meador being shot, because there was a struggle where the man and I were both trying to get him to stop being violent with 22-month-old Melbourne Halo Meador. So I ended up shooting Austin John Meador in the leg, and I will go into detail about what was going on during the struggle. But I ended up shooting him close range in the leg, but I grabbed Melbourne Halo Meador from his arms at the same time that the bullet went off. And I was able to get my child out of his arms immediately. And he fell into the man's arms. And when he fell into the man's arms, the man dragged him, because the man was already trying to restrain him during the struggle. And so he fell into the man's arms, and the man he drug him to the front of the restaurant, and he left him right in front of the door. Now, the police were outside, and they were telling him to tell me to come outside with my hands up. And no, not with my hands up. They were telling me to come outside with the gun. So I tried to send a quick video to my family in Georgia to let them know what had just transpired, but I didn't have time because the police were telling me to come out with the gun. So I had checked my son already. When I put him down, I checked my son before I tried to make the video, and he was good, and he was walking. And so I put the gun in my purse, and I put my hands up. And when I put my hands up, my son put his hands up, and we both walked out of the restaurant. And all the police officers had their guns drawn on me. And so I complied with the police and put my hands behind my head. And I got on the ground, and Officer C. Adams, a white female officer, took my purse off of my arm and dumped it on the squad car. And I had my ID, my cell phone. I didn't have much cash. I had my car keys, and there was the gun in the bag. And so they put me in the back of the squad car, and they took me to the police department and charged me with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, child negligence, dispersing a weapon in a public place. And they charged me. I had about 3 or 4 charges after I spoke with the detective, and they already knew that I had been calling the police department trying to get help. And they knew that he had a history of abusing me before he went to prison as well. He had an assault family violence charge. He had a drug charge, a theft charge. And then he was convicted for assault on a public servant when he went for the 2-year sentence at TDCJ before he came back into my home. But I was the one who called the police, and he was charged with a probation violation. And he also had a rape charge for trying to rape me at 230 Avenue G in Conroe, Texas, which was an apartment that we shared together before I moved to 1301 Houston Street. So when they brought me into the jail, I was pregnant, and I was bleeding. And so the jail infirmary continued to lie and say that I was not pregnant for the months of September, October, November, December of 2018, I was pregnant. And so January, February, March, in April of 2019, I was pregnant. So this entire time, they were poisoning me in the back of the Montgomery County Jail. They were poisoning my trays. They were poisoning my drinks. They were poisoning my commissary, and they were keeping me in the segregated housing units. They were getting help from white inmates, black male inmates, Hispanic inmates, and they were female and male. They were all female and male. They were black, they were white, and they were Hispanic. They were getting these people to poison my food in the kitchen. And these people in our society, the civilians of the city of Conroe, was aware that I was in the back of the Montgomery County Jail and that they were trying to murder me. They never had any intentions of bringing me to a trial because the evidence would have shown that there was no reason to arrest me and that it was the fault of the Conroe Police Department for not helping me when I was calling 911 in my home and when I was calling 911 from the restaurant. So they falsified the entire police report, but I was not aware. So they kept resetting court dates, saying they didn't have evidence and probable cause, and then sending me back to the jail to continue to poison me. The infirmary kept saying, you're not pregnant, and they were trying to get Tri-County to say that I was not pregnant, that I was a mental patient. So from April would have been around the time frame that I probably would have given birth. While I was in labor in the cell, they were gassing me. I was able to get a nurse, Nurse Michelle. She confirmed my pregnancy when I was going into labor. I could not breathe. I had fallen out on the floor, having bowel movements. I was throwing up, and my cervix was changing. It was opening, it was thinning out. They started gassing me with something that was causing my cervix to close. While I was in labor, they were putting me to sleep with sleeping pills. They were putting sleeping pills. They were gassing me. They were doing things to poison my pregnancy and my food. So I continued to stay in there, and they sued me for custody of Melbourne Halo Meador. They allowed Austin John Meador to sue me for custody of Melbourne Halo Meador, and Judge Tracy Gilbert in the Conroe 418th courtroom gave Austin John Meador custody of Melbourne Halo Meador while they were back there poisoning me and trying to murder me. They gave him my apartment, they gave him my vehicle, and they gave him custody of my child, and they tried to murder me to do it. And they were back there saying that I was not pregnant and poisoning us. So from April, May, June, July, August, for 4 months, they continued to poison me through my trays and my juice. They continued to poison my commissary, my family, Andrew Jones. He was supposed to be my father. He left me back there being poisoned by these white people, Hispanic people, and black nurses. They tried to say that I was a mental patient to put me on medication, and I passed all the psych evaluations. And they were not able to try to lie and put me on medication to try to say I could not go to trial. They set a docket call for October 22nd, 2018. And they dropped all the charges, but they had given Austin Meador custody of my son. While I was in the jail, Austin Meador attacked a white female where he was living in his mother's home in Magnolia, Texas, with Cynthia O'Vera and Joseph O'Vera. He attacked this white woman while my child was present in the home. He was 2 years old. And Cynthia O'Vera had to run, the white Caucasian woman who was telling the police not to help me in my home while he was attacking me. She called 911. She ran in the restroom with my baby, and she called 911 to help the white girl, the white woman that he was in there attacking. He kicked the door in. He tore the door off. The white woman was in the room hiding, and he tore the door off. And he went into the room attacking her. And Cynthia O'Vera called the 911 operator immediately to help this white woman in her home. So the police showed up for the white woman in her home, and they arrested him for unlawful restraint. Now, they tried to keep it from being a domestic violence charge because they knew that I was in the back of the jail being poisoned. and they were trying to murder me, and that I was pregnant. So by this time, I don't know what happened to my apartment. Cynthia went in my apartment and took all of my things out of my apartment. They had helped him to get transportation, and they had him living in her home with a white woman with my baby while they were back there poisoning me in the back of the Montgomery County Jail. And all of them had over 19 911 calls from neighbors and civilians and from me, from Austin John Meador attacking me. So I guess they felt like the best way to cover it up would be just to poison us and to just murder us and get it all over with and let the young white male go free. So now August 22nd was when the docket call was. Now they tried to drug me before this docket call with a tray that was drugged. And when I ate the tray, I began to shake and I almost OD'd in the cell, pregnant on the toilet. I had to drink gallons of water in order to survive. They poisoned the water. They were going back and poisoning the water. So mind you, I had a nurse to confirm my pregnancy with a Doppler machine before the docket call. I was bleeding, and I never saw this nurse before. She was not one of the nurses who had been lying. And she said, let me show you. She said, my pregnancies were coming back negative. Let me show you. Let me get this Doppler machine. And she detected my baby's heartbeat. When she did, she called the doctor to come and listen with his stethoscope. And he heard it too. Then she had Nurse Stephanie, the black nurse who had been lying from the beginning, saying that I was not pregnant, knowing they were back there poisoning us in the segregated housing unit. Nurse Stephanie, who was working with the Colorado police to cover up my pregnancy, she came in trying to say with one of the male officers, oh, what is she doing in here? That's a mental patient. And Nurse Michelle said, no, she's pregnant. And do you want me to let you hear it? And the officer was like, oh, no. And he started making phone calls outside the room where Nurse Michelle had me laying. And I was laying in the bed. I could not breathe. I had gone into labor in the facility several times with them doing things to stop the labor. And poisoning us. And so Nurse Stephanie was asked to come over by Charge Nurse Michelle, and Charge Nurse Michelle said, let me show you how to confirm a pregnancy if you claim that the blood test, or they hadn't done any blood tests then, but she said if you claim that the urine samples are coming back negative, because my urine samples came back negative with my first two kids. And so she showed Nurse Stephanie how to use the Doppler system. And Nurse Stephanie was listening to my baby's heartbeat. And she was like, oh, and she let her hear it several times. And then she let the doctor hear it. Now, this doctor was claiming that I was not pregnant. And he was claiming that he could not see me in the facility. I asked for a physical examination because the baby was moving. You could feel my belly and see that I was pregnant. So I asked this doctor to give me a physical examination, and he was writing on these little infirmary slips saying, oh, the nurses say you're not pregnant. No, I will not see you. So now he was sitting there with Charge Nurse Michelle, who had confirmed that I was pregnant, and he heard it. He was like, yeah, she's pregnant. And I was bleeding, and Charge Nurse Michelle asked me to pull down my panties, and she saw I had on a pad and that I was bleeding, and she told me to lay down, and she saw my stomach, and she did the Doppler system after a white male guard kept calling and saying she keeps saying she need a doctor, she pregnant and bleeding. Then there was a black male guard when I came in there, and he saw my stomach. He was like, why you here? And I showed him my stomach, and he was like, oh yeah, you need a doctor. That's when Charge Nurse Michelle took me in the room, looked at my stomach, and then pulled down my panties. She told me to pull down my panties, and she saw the blood. She was like, go lay down. She was like, they're saying your urine samples are negative. And then so she got the Doppler machine. And Nurse Stephanie came running in there, like after she confirmed with the Doppler, like, oh, what is she doing here? And then the officer came in there, oh, she's a mental patient. And that's when Charge Nurse Michelle was like, hold on, let me show you how to confirm a pregnancy if the tests are coming back negative. And she was like, the baby is in distress. And she told the doctor, and he heard it too. And then he was like, I don't want to be on the news. That's what he said. While I was laying there, I couldn't even breathe. And so charge nurse Michelle was kind of looking like, like what's going on? I don't know if she knew what was going on or not. But the male officer had decided that they said something about not letting the ambulance come because of a fetal monitor or something like that. So now this officer was dragging me. They took me to the front of the jail, and the white nurses who were, there were white women who were working in booking. One of them name was Officer Ransom, and there was another woman. And all these wicked white women were trying to attack me in the jail, and they were trying to make me out to be a mental patient while all saying that I was not pregnant. And they were looking at me about to go to the hospital, and they was like, what is she doing leaving here? Because they knew that I had been being poisoned in the back of the segregated housing unit. They knew they were lying on my case. So now they were like, okay, where is she going? And then the officer was like, oh, she's pregnant. Now this is the officer that's over there trying to run in there and call me a mental patient, making phone calls, don't want to let me get on the ambulance. Now all of a sudden, they're like, oh, where's she going? He's like, oh, she's pregnant. They're like, oh, we didn't know. Like looking like, okay, who the fuck confirmed her pregnancy? Like they're not supposed to do that. And this is how they were all looking. So this was the first time that they didn't put the shackles on my feet, and that they didn't put, I think they might have put the shackles on my feet or whatever, I'm not sure, but they didn't put the chain around my belly. So they have been putting the chains around my belly to almost 13, 14 different court dates, and I kept asking them, please don't do it too tight because I'm pregnant and I was already bleeding. So mind you, they were trying to attack me and slam me on my belly and do anything to try to fight me to try to kill this baby. And my whole family knew I was back there. The country knew I was back there. And all of these people in the community knew I was back there. All these people in the jail knew I was back there. The entire staff knew that I was back there. And it was black people, the main ones involved. So now I'm going to tell you, so when I got into, the officer did not transport me by ambulance. He got a woman who works there. She looked like she kind of Hispanic or Indian, like if she could be from Pakistan or something. And she works in the front. She was working in the front of booking. Very beautiful woman. She looked like she got some Hispanic descent. And she went with the officer on the passenger side, and the officer drove on the front side, and he was speeding while I was in labor because I couldn't breathe. And he was speeding to the hospital in a police squad car. So he sped to the Conroe Regional Hospital where I had my first son. And I will go into detail about how bad Conroe Regional Hospital treated me when I first had my first son. And I will go into detail about some of the crooked things that they did to me medically when I had my first son. And so he drove me to this hospital. And when he drove me to this hospital, they got me out in the emergency room. The people in the emergency room heard that my pregnancy was confirmed with the Doppler. And so they were looking at my stomach and how small I was because they had been poisoning my trays. So I was eating very little because I could not eat all of that mess and survive back there. So I was very tiny, and they were like, her fundal height, like, oh my God. Then they started asking me when my period was, and I told them I missed my period back in July 2018, and that he was attacking me and raping me, and I started bleeding. They was like, well, there's no way that you pregnant then. That'll make you too far along. Ain't no way you pregnant, and you bleeding. And I know that that's not true because I'm pregnant. So, while I was sitting in the emergency room, I started breathing hard, and he was like, oh no, y'all gotta get her up out of here, take her to labor and delivery. This is what the old white man said. He was like, hurry up. And they took me in a wheelchair, and they wheeled me so fast to labor and delivery. And then they got me up in the bed, and when they had me change the outfit. And when they had me change it to the outfit, the little Hispanic correctional guard came into the bathroom with me to change into this gown. And she looked at my stomach and said, oh, you are pregnant. Because it was small, but it had definition to where, and I was so tiny that you could tell that I was pregnant. And she was like, oh, you are pregnant. And she was one of the main ones who told them that I was a mental patient when they brought me to labor and delivery. When they brought me to labor and delivery, the white women was asking what's going on. And I'm sitting over here, can't breathe, going into labor. And she was like, oh, well, she's a mental patient, because this was the lie that they had been running around telling. They still trying to tell it. And I want justice for everybody that opened up their mouth to say that I was a mental patient. I want them in prison, period. So this woman took me in the bathroom and took off my gown. And then she was like, oh, you are pregnant. And then so when they set me in the bed and laid me back, I was so small that my stomach looked flat while I was lying down. And the white nurses, I believe one of her name was Rebecca. I'm not sure because when I asked for their names, they didn't want to give up their names. They had me laying in the bed and I asked them, can you please hook up the fetal monitor around my belly so you can detect my baby's heartbeat and try to get us some help. They refused, saying you are too small. Your stomach is too small. There is no way. They was like, you only look like you only like 20 weeks. That was like, so it's no way you could be pregnant after being in the jail for all this time, and that you pregnant. They was like, you so small that it probably won't even fit around your belly. And I knew that they could have put it on there, but they just did not want to confirm that I was carrying a baby and that I was that small. And they didn't want to take no responsibility for the fact that people been back there poisoning us, trying to murder us. So now they took me, they was like, hurry up. They did some PP tests and trying to say that the PP test was coming back negative. So they was like, okay, take her back to the emergency room. So I started going off on the white officer that brought me. I was like, it's because I'm black, right? It's because of my hair, right? And he was like, what you mean? And I said, because y'all over here doing all this to me because I'm black. And then my baby daddy is white. And so the Hispanic correctional guard that was with him was like, your baby daddy is not white. Now, all y'all will see that Meador Halo Meador's father is Austin John Meador, and he is Caucasian. And she was up in here saying that he was not white. So they was over here trying to say that a black man attacked me, trying to blame it on a black man to try to cover for Austin. And then I'm pregnant by Austin. And they was over there trying to say, oh, I'm not pregnant, and that my son was by a black man. And so I'm looking at this lady like, first of all, you ain't got no right to try to tell me that my baby daddy is black. So they took me to the emergency room and set me in the emergency room. And I'm sitting there hurting in pain. And I told this white male officer, I said, y'all know he was raping me and hitting me and I'm pregnant. And then the white male officer was like, what do you mean he was raping you and hitting you? And I was like, he was raping me and hitting me in my home. And I called the police, and the police tried to tell me that I could not make Austin John Meador leave my house after 72 hours of him being out of prison while he was in there hurting me and my son. And I kept calling y'all, and y'all didn't help me. And now y'all sitting up here trying to murder me because I shot him. And then so the police officer was like, no, that's not true. The police should have made him leave. If you was calling, the police should have made him leave. This was a white male officer. He was like, let me make some calls. He was like, did you tell this to the police? I said, yes. I called them several times. I told them he was hurting me. So it's no reason for y'all to be trying to kill me and my baby in the back of the Montgomery County jail. And so he was like, let me make some calls. And so he called somebody. And he came back with a police report and was like, well, since you reporting it to me, I was told to let you write it down so I can hand this information over to the right person. So I'm up in the bed. They chained me to the hospital bed in the emergency room. So they took me out of labor and delivery. She did some so-called piss test saying that I wasn't pregnant. So now they chained me to a bed in the emergency room. And I was in there, couldn't breathe. I could not breathe. I was breathing very hard, and I felt like something was wrong. And so The doctor came in there, and there was a woman who looked like she was of Hispanic descent. She came in there taking all these different vials of blood out of me, and then she left, and they had me chained to the bed, and I'm over here can't hardly breathe. And so when they took me, and they had an old white woman take me to do a vaginal probe, because I told the doctor, I said, I need an ultrasound. I told him, I said, with my first son, they was able to find his heartbeat through a vaginal ultrasound, but I was not requesting a vaginal ultrasound. I was too far along for that, but I was small. I was requesting an ultrasound on my belly, not in my vagina. So this old white woman with glasses, she reeled me down to one of the rooms where they do the vaginal ultrasound, and she had me open my legs. I was bleeding. And they put the vaginal probe in my vagina, and she started moving it around, and then she was like looking, and then afterwards I asked her, what did you see? I know because I'm pregnant. And she was like, oh, well, I can't tell you. How can you not tell me what you see on the results for my body? So she goes and tells the doctor. And the doctor, they over there talking, and the doctor come back in the room talking about, oh, you're not pregnant. And then I was like, okay, can you examine my belly? Because if you examine my belly, you'll be able to see that I am pregnant. He said no. And he was standing right there in front of the white male officer and the Hispanic officer. And then the Hispanic woman was saying that the blood test came back negative. You know, they were lying. And then so I was like, where did you get your license to practice medicine in the state of Texas? And then he got all cocky telling me where he graduated and refusing to do an examination on my belly, refusing to look at my belly after everybody was saying that they could tell I was pregnant from looking at my belly. This doctor was refusing to look at my belly, and he was trying to pretend like these test results that these white women was telling him was confirming that I was not pregnant. And this was a damn lie. And so I started going off. And the white women who was sitting there when I was coming out of the room, the nurses, I was like, y'all some racist ass white women. And they was laughing. They was doing hee ha ha and like teasing me because they knew that I was pregnant, and they knew that they were lying, and they knew that they was trying to murder me in the back of the jail. So they put the chains back around my belly. They put the chains back around my feet. And then they decided to take me back into the squad car, to take me back to the jail to try to finish the job of murdering me in the back of the jail in the segregated housing units in Conroe, Texas, in the Montgomery County Jail. So this is when I started to scream as they were taking me out of the emergency room exit doors in front of the Conroe Regional Hospital. I started to scream. My name is Andrea Antoinette Jones. My name is Andrea Jones. They are poisoning me in the back of the Montgomery County Jail. They are murdering black babies in the back of the Montgomery County Jail. And all of a sudden, they started trying to drag me out of there quick. So the woman who was of Hispanic descent, that was a correctional guard, and the white male guard, they started pulling me and dragging my body out by my arms. Each one of them had my arm. So the Hispanic lady had my arm, and the white male had my arm, and I was screaming, my name is Andrea Antoinette Jones. They murdering black babies in the back of the Montgomery County Jail. Help! Somebody help us! And so this was, and then they put me in the squad car, and I told this woman, I said, I don't know what kind of gang you in. I don't know what kind of affiliations you got, but it is not worth it. I said, the wickedness that y'all doing is not worth it. I said, whatever blessings I done had in my life, I ain't never had to be this wicked to nobody for no money, for no job. I said, I done always been blessed to have what I need, and I ain't never had to do this kind of wickedness to nobody. I said, we ain't do nothing to y'all but live in the community and be prosperous around y'all, and we ain't did nothing for y'all to sit up here trying to kill us. I said, what did me and my son do? What did me and my kids do besides be black in your community to have y'all over here trying to murder us for a white man that was abusing us? What did we do to y'all? And I was like, oh God, what did we do to deserve to be born on this earth with people trying to murder us because of our skin color? What did we do, God? Why did we deserve this? And they were sitting there listening and everything. And so when we got back to the jail, they put me in a suicide room because they were trying to make it seem like my death would have been a suicide. So they had been putting me in these suicide rooms and trying to say I was mentally ill, so that when I turned up dead, they would say that I killed myself. And so they were also trying to say that I was violent at first while they were attacking me and jumping on me in the back of the jail. So that didn't work. And they were trying to say that it was a suicide while they were poisoning us. So they put me in the suicide room. And I remember telling the Hispanic woman, I said, "You are a racist." And she got offended, telling the white woman who was up there, "Oh my goodness, she's over here saying that I'm a racist." And I guess she feel like because she might be liked by some of the black and male inmates around the jail and some of the black correctional guards around the jail, and she's in cahoots with some of the other black women that are involved with poisoning black women in the jail. I guess she feels that that'll make her a racist. You doing all of this for white supremacy, so you are a racist. And she tried to lie and say my baby daddy was black, so you are a racist. And she got offended, and she was like, "I'm not a racist." I'm like, "You are a racist." And so after this, I was screaming in the jail. I was screaming that I'm pregnant. They murderers, y'all murderers. I'm pregnant, y'all are murderers. Y'all are murderers. And they had black women who was cleaning up and serving trays, at this point, over there trying to tell me, "Baby girl, calm down. This not the way you handle it. Just calm down." I was like, "No, I ain't finna calm down for people to keep on trying to kill me. I am not finna calm down for people to keep on trying to murder me. I don't give a damn about that." So they took me to the infirmary, and they tried to give me some Tylenol. Now, knowing that I'm in labor, the black nurse in there who saw my belly in the infirmary and tried to lie and say I was not pregnant when I was still very, very, very small, and you could see my baby moving, she was like, "Oh, you're not pregnant, and sent me back there. This was not Nurse Stephanie, but this was another black nurse. And she sent me, she would not do no tests because I had some water trickle out of my vagina. I had a pop. Something popped out of my vagina when I first started to go into labor. Something popped out of my vagina, and it had mucus. It looked like some snot or something. It was like, it was clear, kind of, sort of, but it just said pop, and it popped out of my vagina, and then some fluid came down, but it was only a very little amount of fluid. And so I asked them to take me to the infirmary, and he took me, and she was like, "Oh, you're not pregnant. Yo, test results say you're not pregnant." And then she hurried up and let them take me back there, and I was crying and screaming. So this nurse was asking me, "Do you want some medicine? You want some Tylenol?" And I'm over here, was in labor, and she asking if I want Tylenol. I was like, "No, I don't pop pills. I don't pop pills. So you ain't about to just try to give me no Tylenol and send me back there." And so they put me, so when I was in the infirmary, one of the nurses, the Hispanic lady, was trying to talk about me or whatever, and I looked at her and I started going mouthing off at her, because I'm like, "Woman, you ain't all that, because you around here walking around like you all that, and I'm pregnant. And then I was like, going off on the lady. And then the white males was coming in there, and they was like, "How you doing today?" I was like, "No." I was like, how you think I'm doing?" And I was like, "Only reason why you smiling is because you white. And ain't nobody doing nothing to you. So don't come over here talking about how I'm doing, trying to be all up in my face." And then saw a white woman, they had a white correctional guard come in there, young one, talking about, "You need to calm down." Excuse me, I had to clear my voice because I've been doing a lot of talking. I said, "Ma'am, y'all have done this. God told me y'all have done this to over 250 black people in America. So I was like, you lucky I'm pregnant. You real lucky that I'm pregnant. Because all y'all sitting over here trying to have me murdered." So I made it to the docket call in August 22nd, 2018. I made it to the docket call because they were doing all this torturing me, inmate abuse, poisoning my food, and they had drugged me, and I did not know why they had drugged me so bad. They drugged me several times through my meals, and they were gassing me. When I came back from the hospital, while I was still in labor, my cervix was thinning, it was spread bedridden, and they started spraying something through the vents. They started spraying some chemical, and some gas was knocking me out in the cell. And so this is what they were doing to keep me from having contractions and to keep my cervix. So they had put me in the suicide room, and they were spraying this chemical on me in the so-called suicide room. And I had done several safety measures to try to keep myself alive in the cell with the water. They had poisoned the water. And so they were trying to make me out to be crazy while I'm in there trying to survive. And so turns out Austin Meador had attacked the white woman, and he was in jail. So they had him across the hall in the male unit, and they had me across the hall in the segregated housing unit, and they were trying to make the decision to murder me and the baby. So Austin could get free, and to keep me from knowing that he was in the facility for beating up another woman. So they was trying to hurry up and kill me to keep me from finding out that he was in the jail. So now I knew he was in the jail, and CPS finally want to come up there and tell me where my son is, because CPS was trying to make it seem like I had already been convicted. They was trying to tell me I couldn't know where my son was. They was trying to be very rude to me when they were already aware that the father was a convict. And I told CPS when they came, I said, do you know how many charges this man have? Who was attacking my son, his father? Do you know? While you over here trying to accuse the mother? Have you done the details? Have you really went into the information about my case while y'all trying to handle me like I can't know anything about my son's whereabouts or his well-being?